Good morning. Good morning. Java Delight will uplift you. Stay tuned. The show is about to begin. Grab your coffee. Stay tuned. This show is about to begin.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining us here on Java Delight. My name is Brandon Croucher, and I'm the CEO of Delight Cafe CBD and Delight Cafe Digital Network. I have the one, the only, the most handsome man in the Delight Network, apparently, because he's winning the vote without even knowing there was a vote. Gavin Kerr, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, I had no idea there was a vote on that, but thank you. I appreciate it.
The worst part is the only person that voted was Jessica Dugas.
Oh, well, it's a very important vote. You know, I'd say that counts for votes of the whole company.
I gave her the same level there. I'm like, yep,
yeah.
Jessica Dugas is the one that does it. How are you doing? You look tired this morning, buddy.
Yeah, I am tired. I was up. Yesterday was a very busy day from the moment I woke up to the moment I went to bed, and then I went to bed late as well. Let's see, I did the show yesterday, and then right after that, I did my show Between the Notes, which I will be posting today, and then after this, I have another Between the Notes interview that I will have to do, which I will post probably later this week during the weekend, and then yesterday, right after, right after Between the Notes, we had a meeting, and then directly after that, I did some yard work, went and did some shopping, and then went and helped out the LGBTQ community real quick. They had some stuff they need moved around, so I helped them for about an hour is all it took. Pretty short job. And then after that, I came home. Oh, great. I saw her for just a moment, yeah.
Oh, who did you work with then?
Myself. They had a job, and they were going to help me, and I can't remember. I believe the name is Nick was the other person there, and Kendra's like, oh, I'm going to take Nick to the building really quick, show him what we're doing while you get this part done. And I was all like, yeah, no problem. She's like, all right, I'll be back in a few minutes and help you. And they were gone for maybe like 15 or probably like 20 minutes, and I called her, I was like, hey, I'm done. Do you have ratchet straps? And she's all like, what do you mean you're done? I was like, yeah, do you have ratchet straps so I can strap this down to the truck bed? She goes, yeah, in the back. I was like, all right, cool. And so I strapped it all down. By the time they came back, it was all ready to go.
I always, you and I have that work ethic. It's like, get it done. I don't want to waste time. That's why she was laughing. They thought you and I, when we went there to clean last week and do some stuff with them at the building, they thought that was going to take us like a day or two.
Oh, damn.
And you and I got it done in, 2 hours?
Yeah.
With goofing around and throwing things?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I know I was getting paid hourly, but I don't like to mess around when I do work, and so that's just not who I am. I'd rather get it done and get out of there. Yeah, I got other stuff to do.
Oh,
that being said, though, 2 days of work for $20 an hour does sound nice now that I think of that.
I mean, they were ready for us, so maybe next time we talk that out better. Like, hey, Gavin, we're going to go here. We're going to move one box, and then we're going to go eat breakfast. Then we're going to come back and move one box.
Right.
Go eat lunch.
No, I can never do that.
No, never.
Yeah,
Never.
I knew people who used to do that when I was working in restaurants. I knew people who would milk the clock. They'd piss me off because I want to go home, and they'd just be sitting there. They're like, "Oh, we're just gonna wait. I need to get my overtime." I'm all like, "No, you need to get the F out of here because I'm tired. It's bedtime." Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna start our day. Gavin looks so tired. I want to like go give him a hug. Like, just
I feel
hey,
fine. I just.
come here. You okay? You just
Yeah.
it's just me. But say hello, give your shout outs, and tell us what you're grateful for this morning. Gavin, I'll go first so that way you can think, because I know I've been up for a while today.
Okay.
I'm grateful. I woke up, I wouldn't say early, but I woke up earlier than usual because my niece has to get ready for school. And she's been having a really hard time because of COVID and all this. So I made her the deal yesterday. If she wakes up and doesn't give my sister a hard time, gets dressed, gets herself ready for school, I'll have breakfast with her. But we have to be on the video chat and all that. So I got to have breakfast with my niece this morning. And she literally turned, Brandon and Gavin, wake up. We're trying.
I feel fine.
But she ends up being just this ball of excitement, and it ended up being my mom and dad came down. They poured themselves a bowl of cereal and a coffee, so she got to have breakfast with all three of us, and she left for school saying, "Oh, it's going to be a great day." So for me, I'm grateful I got to actually start my day with my niece, and she started my day in a great way. How about you, Gavin? What are you grateful for today? Let us know what you're grateful for in the comments, guys.
Yeah.
We love ya.
I'm grateful for those the sampler boxes of tea. I got one of those the other day where it's all different fruit flavors. So I got like strawberry and cherry and blueberry and mixed wild berry and all that. I've just been enjoying and exploring those flavors. It's been delightful. It's been so wonderful.
So wonderful. That's awesome. Yeah. Those are good. If anybody has anything they're grateful for, throw it up there so I can make Gavin smile. Oh, there we go. I knew Rising Phoenix had something for us. I am grateful that I have changed myself morning schedule to include my self-Reiki treatments. Honestly, I love that. I'm grateful. Actually, Gavin, I got to throw one more thing out there I'm grateful for. I have to. I got to actually spend a few minutes on the phone this morning with Brett and Brian Tracy backstage. And we got to just talking and catching up. And Brian Tracy is he's got a lot going on, but he still shows up daily. And I just want him to know how much I appreciate him and I'm grateful for him. Brett Gordon is an amazing human being. And tonight he has his show for the first time. He's going to be going live at 6 p.m. this evening. He's going to be talking about leadership and building tools and not being a tool. And that's the best part is we get to learn from Brett, the tool expert. I love making people laugh backstage that nobody gets to see. I had his whole mouth go open on that laugh. Brett says, I'm grateful I got a chance to talk with Brian. Oh my God, squirrel this morning. Grateful to get the word out on One Square at a Time and review the movie Soul. Live episode 3 p.m. PT time, that's Pacific time, 6 p.m. ET time, Eastern time. I am grateful I took Rocky for a walk before it rained. I'm going before it did to rain. I'm gonna go started to rain. Absolutely. I love that you got out, and then the benefit is that you started to. You didn't get caught in the rain. I've got a lot going on too, boo. Okay, Mike, I'm glad you're here. Ladies and gentlemen, Christina just sent me. Don't forget to send me the link. Brett, can you send that in the group chat to Christina? She can't find the link, and it's in the group chat. That's pretty funny. I like people messaging me while I'm on air. But Mike Herzog, I'm so grateful that Mike Herzog and I got to go get margaritas the other day with Russ Stitch. Huh, what?
Did you go to Maya's?
Hell yeah, we did.
Oh, I love Maya's.
Buddy, we had so much fun. I don't get to hang out with them very much because of what COVID was and everybody being safe. So getting out to have drinks with friends for the first time in a long time was literally like just heaven to me. It was nice to be able to catch up, see people, and just, be around friends that are uplifting like that. And I'm being told to shut it. You're so handsome. You're so handsome. So, yeah, pardon? Who are we pardoning? I'm curious about that. That one caught me off guard.
I beg your pardon.
Now, Gavin, tonight you're doing trivia.
No, tonight I'm doing karaoke.
At?
Tony K's in Berea.
From
8 to 11.
8 to 11, Tony K's in Illyria.
Berea.
In Berea, in Tokyo. I'm grateful for my huge golf umbrella. It keeps me dry and socially distanced. It's huge. Huge. It's huge.
What is a golf umbrella? Is it like an actual like umbrella or?
It's big. It's big. Like you open it and like you and I could stand underneath it.
Nice.
I think it's supposed to be big enough that like you're able to hold it out and the person wouldn't get hit with it, but that you're like blocking the rain. So that way they could still do their stroke. That way they get electrocuted and you don't when the lightning strikes. That's like a golf umbrella.
I dig it.
What you on about, Mike? Oh, Mike and I are just picking on each other. All right, Gavin. 5 trivia questions. The winner gets the autograph book of the. We talked about this yesterday.
Yeah, I know. I just got to grab my trivia folder.
I love it. Wait, it's an umbrella that is 3 under par. Ha ha. Gavin, you have a Between the Night notes today, and it's going to be awesome. Brian Tracy, who is he interviewing today? Don't forget to check out Brett Gordon at One Square at a Time. The link for Soul's show and to catch up on Brett's tool of what he said it is. Find out in this episode and then give us a shout out on the show 6 p.m. this evening and learn about building your best you and help us maybe find a tool that fits you as a leader.
All right.
I'm all yours, buddy. Talk to me.
I can't remember if I did these ones or not, but I'm pretty sure I didn't. The category is Ohio sports.
Okay. Oh, this is gonna be fun.
Yeah.
You think you got me?
I do. I think I got you with this first one.
Go ahead.
Cincinnati's Major League Baseball team is the Reds. What is the greatest historical significance of this team? Is it A, first professional baseball team in the world, B, first team to implement desegregation, C, first team to use protective gear, or D, first team to use a left-handed pitcher?
Okay. All right. So I have my answer. I will type it in right here so I don't change anything. But I'm going to give everybody else a chance to do it again. So, that was exactly what I thought I was going to say. For real, Brett. So my answer is typed here. Read the question again, and then I will hit enter, and everybody's answers will be in. We'll see who's winning.
Cincinnati's Major League Baseball team is the Reds. What is the greatest historical significance of this team? Is it A, first professional baseball team in the world, B, first team to implement desegregation, C, first team to use protective gear, or D, first team to use a left-handed pitcher?
All right, the answers are in.
The answer is A, first professional baseball team in the world.
What? Wait, what? All right, so everybody got that one wrong. Wow, I didn't think they were. I really did. Yeah. I thought New York had a team. The Cleveland Spiders were a team before Cincinnati had a team. Wow. Okay, go on. Next question. Yeah. I'm 0 for 1. Here we go. All right, everybody get ready. Everybody's missed the first question.
Which season did Cleveland fans attend their first ever World Series? Is it A, 1875, B, 1912, C, 1920, or D, 1945?
Can you repeat the question, and I will type my answer?
Yeah. Which season did Cleveland fans attend their first World Series? first ever World Series? A, 1875, B, 1912, C, 1920, or D, 1945?
Okay. Answers in. So my thought process was the first one because of how early it was, but it seemed way too early. So I'm like, okay, nix that out. And then I went to like C or D was what I thought. And I'm like, B just seems like the best logical answer. So I put B, Brian Tracy put B, Rising Phoenix put C. So Tokyo Bento put B. All right, buddy, give me it.
The answer is C, 1920.
Rising Phoenix on the lead. I love it. All right. 1-0 Rising Phoenix. She's beating everybody right now.
All right. How many questions we doing? You said how many? Five? Okay. When was the Cavaliers' first season in the NBA?
Go ahead.
Was it A, 1970, B, 1963, C, 1975, or D, 1967? What was the Cavaliers' first season in the NBA? Is it A, 1970, B, 1963, C, 1975, or D, 1967?
Send. And he's Tokyo Bento's calling you out because he's right. They did have the Hiroshima Carps to use the same uniforms. The C is for Carps. He's actually correct.
Oh.
All right, so we have different answers all around here. Brett Gordon says D. Rising Phoenix says 3. C. I say C. Tokyo Bento says D. Brian Tracy says D. This is going to be an interesting one. Here we go.
The answer is A, 1970.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. All right, so Rising Phoenix is still winning 1-0. Gavin, so far on the trivia, is killing us.
All right. Question number 4. Who was the 2-time Heisman Trophy winner at Ohio State? Is it A, Archie Bunker, B, Archie Andrews, C, Archie Griffin, or D, Archie Brown? Who was the 2-time Heisman Trophy winner at Ohio State? A, Archie Bunker, B, Archie Andrews, C, Archie Griffin, or D, Archie Brown?
I'm willing to bet everybody gets this one right. Ready?
Yeah.
Brett Gordon with a C. Rising Phoenix with a C. Tokyo Bento C. C. Do you see?
You ready? The answer is C, Archie Griffin.
Now, do you know that he is the only 2-time Heisman winner all time in college football?
Nope.
Yep, that's why we all knew that.
Fair enough. All right, so, well, that kind of makes the scoreboard irrelevant because Rising Phoenix is still winning by 1.
Hey, it's still 2 to 1. Everybody else. All right, here we go. I'm ready.
All right, last question. How many player numbers have the Lake Erie Monsters retired? Is it A, 1, B, 2, C, 3, or D, 4? How many player numbers have the Lake Erie Monsters retired? Is it A, 1, B, 2, C, 3, or D, 4?
All right, that's my guess. I'm trying here. The Lake Erie Monsters. A, B, C, and Jessica's the big D. E, retired the Lake Erie Monster. Brett's making his own answers now. I love it.
I see that.
All right, go ahead. I'm all ears. What is it?
The answer is C, 3.
So technically, Brian Tracy, myself, and Rising Phoenix have a 2-2 tie.
Oh, you sons of mother lovers.
Ha ha!
All right, fine. We'll do a tiebreaker. Let me see. All right. No multiple choice for my tiebreakers.
Okay.
I like to see how much you really know.
All right, here we go. Last question, everybody. Get ready.
What are the colors of the Norwegian flag? I don't even know what the Norwegian flag looks like.
Oh, my God.
I'm actually going to look up what it looks like, because I've asked this question so many times, but I've yet to see it.
Wait. Sorry. I caught somebody else's answers. Oh. See, that I thought that was not theirs. Rising Phoenix comes in with red and white. Everybody else did blue and white, and she comes in with red and white. This could be for the win. We are all in here. Brian Tracy and I are black. He says black and red. We have 3 different answers. I love it.
You ready?
I'm ready.
The answer is red, white, and blue.
So we all got it wrong. Got to do another question. Go.
Yeah, I got it wrong, yeah.
The worst part is I wrote red, white, and blue because I thought that was like our flag. And then I erased it. I'm like, I don't think the red's there.
Yeah, it's a cross with the red in the background, and then the cross is outlined with white.
Jaybird, I love what he says here. Red, indigo, blue, white. He wins. All right, here we go.
Which country produces the most coffee in the world? I believe I've asked this one on here as well.
Which country?
Yeah, which country produces the most coffee in the world?
I got to think how to spell it. Oh, Brian Tracy and I at the same time. All right. Ethiopia, Brazil. No, we don't have the Rising Phoenix. She's in here for the I didn't mean to hit that. She's in here for the final one.
Oh, yeah.
Colombia, Brazil, Ethiopia. All 3 of us said Colombia. So if we get it right or wrong, if we get it wrong and it's Brazil, it makes it a 3-way tie, buddy.
Yeah, no, it is Brazil.
That just made everybody tied.
This is bullshit.
No, it's not. It's fun. Now,
you know what? Usually what I do at this point is I do rock, paper, scissors when I host trivia nights.
No. And Jaybird comes in gets Brazil. So see, now it's 2-2-2-2. 5 2s and a 1.
Give me like 1 second really quick.
That's perfectly fine. What I'll do is I'll introduce Christina while you get ready, and she can play our next game with us. Sound good?
Yeah.
Paper. I call paper. Boom. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, we are all wanting to learn how to read more, be better, and get excited about reading. It's very hard to do. But when you do and you take the time to really take time for yourself, guess what? You're going to build a better you. Building that sometimes takes a community. And having someone that really loves reading and wants to get the best out of people is essential. So join us today as we go to our little corner of the world with Christina, to Christina's Corner. Christina,
Hey, y'all.
so we are playing trivia right now, and
That's
Gavin
fun.
is like trying to beat us, but he didn't realize we all are really good at this.
Okay.
And we're all tied. You want to be on my team right now to help me get the win?
Well, the thing is that it's not that they're all good, it's that they're all equally bad and good at it. Like, they all get the exact same question wrong, and then they all get the exact same question right. Yeah.
Which means you have the same topics that you all know, right?
Yep.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm just about to start looking up random bits of knowledge here in a second.
We're all playing rock, paper, scissors now in the comments for you, buddy. Like
Let's
rock, paper, scissors, lizard, Spock. I think that.
All
Grenade.
right. You ready?
Yeah, go.
Everybody, you get 10 seconds to figure this out, so I know you're not cheating. All right.
Well,
Yeah, you're gonna need a little longer than 10 seconds if you're doing the math. Maybe like 15 seconds. How many minutes in a day?
I have no idea. I can't do mental math.
Whoever is closest gets the point.
Do you just type it in, or should I shout it out?
You can just type it in. Yeah.
You could type it in.
Okay. I have no idea. Oh my God, my answer is going to be so bad. Don't make fun of me. I'm just
42.
I mean, that's closer than your answer.
I just started singing. Christina says 2,000.
That's really high. But wouldn't it just be 60 minutes times 24 hours?
All right.
It's 1440.
I think some of you guys cheated. The answer is 1,440.
Okay, so I wasn't completely off. I mean, it's just 60 times 24, but I suck at mental math, so.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah, you're right.
I saw Brett using pen and paper and a calculator back there.
Yeah.
He had an what are those called?
The Chinese calculators?
Yeah, I can't think
Where
of
it's
what
got
that
the beads on it, yeah.
It's
An abacus. Yes,
Yeah.
I knew you'd know. An abacus. Look, Brett's typing it even faster than he did the math. So, Christina, we are all excited. So for question 3, for the chapter 3, you and Gavin just did, and we're getting ready for the next part of the book club, and going to be talking about chapter 4 and it's Brene Brown's Daring Greatly. Ooh, and she's got the book right there. Now you ain't perfect. That's what I had as a kid. Oh, I'm sorry, Brett. You and Gavin did chapter 3.
We did.
And chapter 4 we're still recording, or you're going live later today, am I right?
Yeah, that's right.
I knew it. I'm so excited. What time are you going live again? I forget.
I think we said maybe 1.
That's actually
Yeah.
Yep. Because I remember putting it in my calendar, and then I don't like to get off while I'm on there. But 1 p.m. today, you're going to be going live, and you're going to be talking about chapter 4. Give us a little bit of insight of what chapter 4 is and what that. I'm vulnerable right now. Teach me.
No, for sure. So it's the chapter. The title is the Vulnerability Armory. So basically, it talks about like what we do when we feel vulnerable, and like the different ways that we kind of handle it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I mean, everybody handles vulnerability and shame differently, and it shows up differently in how we express it. But she just kind of dives into what that looks like, and then kind of how to handle it. So it's a good. I mean, it's always good, but.
Now this is going to be one where you're breaking down. Is your mom joining us, Patty?
I'll ask her. I'm not sure. That's a good question. I'll have to text her.
Oh yeah. If you guys haven't met Patty yet, she is right, Patty.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. All of a sudden, I'm like, I don't want to be using the wrong name. I don't want to offend your mom. She is a wonderful addition to Christina's Corner because she brings great insight. It's a fun conversation. And having another perspective that's a mom while having your daughter there is a really good dynamic. The two of you bounce off each other, and you having to be vulnerable in front of your mom and then your mom vice versa. It really creates a great conversational piece. So I love that you're doing this.
Yeah.
So what can I look forward to tonight or this afternoon? What can I be looking at?
Yeah, so today really we'll just be diving into like, again, what vulnerability is. It's always kind of good to do like a refresh, and then shame and the differences, and then the ways they show up in your life, and also the ways that they can show up in, loved ones' lives. Because, it's good to also be aware of how it shows up for us, but also not being vulnerable, or when we're feeling vulnerable, can cause, strife in relationships. So unless you're aware of how someone communicates and all of that, so that'll just be kind of like an overview. I always feel like I could, me and Gavin talked about this. We could talk about it forever. So I try to keep it as succinct as possible. But
so, what would you say is something that you've picked up from this book that you've been able to bring into either your mom or to your relationships?
Yeah,
Gavin, you can jump in.
Yeah. I think just like without overthinking it, which I'm so known for, just over the top of my head is, I would say that vulnerability is crucial and necessary to true wholehearted living. I didn't say that. That's Brene. Wholehearted living and connection. Because without it, your relationships won't be as close and as authentic as you want. And so the more we learn how to do vulnerability, the better our lives get.
I love that. And Gavin, we've been talking about vulnerability and all that. What are you going to be participating today at 1:00, jumping on the conversation?
No, I have between the notes at 1:30 that I need to get ready for.
That's what I thought.
So as much as I would love to, I'm not available today.
Are you being vulnerable lately? How have you been vulnerable?
Yeah, Brandon, I just went through a breakup. I'd say I'm being pretty vulnerable.
With you. I'm right with you on that. So I didn't want you to go into the breakup. I meant being vulnerable as you. You know what? Hold on. I'm gonna just pull myself out since you want to make me feel.
Yeah, you taste feet. Go brush your teeth.
I need to go brush my teeth. So thank you.
Me too.
But
I woke up and came right on the show. But yeah, no, I've been vulnerable. The thing that I took mostly from the book was how to not only so much like fixing or bettering relationships that I already have, and not even just like with significant others, but friendships, stuff like that. It's self-reflecting more so. I've been doing a lot of self-reflecting and very vulnerable with myself and admitting things to myself that I would usually just kind of put to the side or kind of forget about. I've been really facing a lot of things within me that I've been trying to do, and I've been expressing that to people too. Like I was on the phone with my brother Logan the other day, and I told him, I was like, hey, I have something that I need to tell you that might make you really mad. And he goes, okay, what is it? And I told him, and he was very, very calm about it and stuff like that. And he actually wasn't mad really at all. He just said, okay, well, this is how I feel about it. We talked it out. And I told him, he's like, I'm never like going to like really be mad at you, or like I'm never going to like push you or anything like that. I said, yeah, I know, but I feel vulnerable right now. And this is me being anxious and projecting it onto you. And I'm sorry for that. He goes, no, I understand. I do it all the time. And then with my mother as well, I've been feeling anxious about a lot of things going on in my life. And so having to admit them to her and talk to her about it, as well as me being vulnerable, and it's done nothing but good, in all honesty. That's the thing. Like when you're vulnerable, a lot of the time when you're anxious about things, especially when it is something to do with family, a lot of the time just sitting down and telling them, hey, this is how I'm feeling, this is the situation. 9 times out of 10, it's not nearly as serious as you think it is. It's not as detrimental. You'll be okay.
Yeah. I agree with that. That's very true.
Yeah. The question that came in, isn't vulnerability similar to risk-taking? And happy Thursday, friends. Hi,
yeah. That's a really good question. What was it again? Is it vulnerability similar to risk-taking? Is it vulnerable? I think, in my opinion, you could feel vulnerable when you're taking a risk. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm not saying that they're not, but I would think that the vulnerability comes into play when you're taking a risk. Like at any time you're vulnerable, right? Like risk taking, the first one I can think of, because you guys brought it up too, is like love, right? Like anytime, I've had friends be like, well, what if he breaks my heart? I'm like, well, you're not going to know unless you try, which sucks, but like letting someone love you and like letting them in is the most vulnerable thing you can do. And that's one of the biggest risks you can take, is putting yourself out there.
I think it's the same principle of a square is a rectangle, but a rectangle isn't a square. Where when you're taking a risk, you're not always being vulnerable just because that risk might not be that big or that detrimental or that vulnerable, to you. That being said, though, when you're being vulnerable, it seems like you're always taking a risk in some sense. You're a risk of your emotions.
Yeah. Yep.
I agree with that.
That was a good question.
Yeah, very well answered too, Gavin. I like that answer.
Thank you.
Christina, I know you've been doing a lot of posts lately.
Yeah.
About like today's guest, our main guest at 10 o'clock. Or 11 o'clock, sorry, is focusing on mental health. She's a student at UC Berkeley.
Oh,
and I think you would really like her. She's a, like, well, first off, she's a Nutella lover, so I'm already a fan of hers. Right? She's pun obsessed, which makes me even more fun.
Yeah.
But she's very into being, like, she's at UC Berkeley and she's dedicated to feminist causes of the reproductive justice issues. And I that's just the quick bio in the background for her. But like the truth is she's one of these people that's about being vulnerable and opening yourself up to heavy conversations and all that. Yeah. So I just wanted to bring that in with this because we're going to have her on in like 20 minutes. And
I'll stay tuned for that. Cause definitely, I mean, reproductive health, I mean, I can't think of as a woman anything that could be more, I mean, that's definitely up there with vulnerability, right? So, because it's like just talking about whatever that is, whatever your reproductive journey is, or, you know, wherever you are. So, yeah, I mean, that's great.
So, actually, I'm going to lead a question that's going to come out of the blue on this. How can men be able to understand? Because this is a heavy topic we're going to get into, and it's more towards females. But why would, like, for men to want to listen to this, they have to be vulnerable to wanting to understand that side. Yeah. What would you say would be a good reason for people to want to tune in? Like, you have no idea what she's going to say, but to hear her about like the conversation from the female perspective.
So is the question like why men should want to tune in, or?
Yeah. And and your book club later too. Sure.
I think that, you know, for men in particular, I think like we have lived in, hopefully this doesn't offend you guys, but I don't think it will. Like, you guys seem pretty open about a patriarchal society, right? So things still are pretty dominated by men, or like we know men's perspectives. It's getting better. Of course, like I will acknowledge that up front. But, you know, like most things come from a male's perspective in society, at least here, right? So I think the idea of understanding just like what the reproductive cycle looks like or what a woman is going through in that is vital to being an ally if you're interested in that. And you don't even have to be an ally to a woman, but I think, you know, getting educated would be the first step. And so, I mean, just tuning into today's episode for that, in my opinion, you can ask her obviously, but that would be the first, you know, that would be the first step, is kind of learning to take yourself out of the patriarchal mindset that we're all in. And people hate that word. I think they get really defensive, and it's not bad. Like, I'm not saying it's good or bad. It's just that we all have to understand the framework that we're coming from. And as more women become in power or roles of leadership, we're going to have to talk about reproductive and children and periods and all the things, and like not freaking out when someone says tampon or like, oh, my period, you know. So it's like talking about those things shouldn't be taboo. They shouldn't be scary. You know, my husband's okay with it now because I'm a very open household. And it's like when I have, you know, sons, they will know what a period is. It's not the scary time of the month where we don't talk about it. Because in my house, we didn't, you know, it was just like dirty, right? So understanding all of that stuff and normalizing talking about it, hopefully will prep the next generation.
I agree. I love what Jay Bird said here. Being vulnerable, risk-taking, accepting oneself are all parts of personal growth. I love that. Very well said. Mandy Atterbury says being vulnerable could make you an easy target, though. And people try to take someone to take advantage of you. So I think that's a great way of segueing this really quick, because of the fact, Christina, we talked about that in the first few weeks. It's in the book that Christina's going to talk about. Being vulnerable is not just being vulnerable and empathetic to people. It's about having those boundaries. It's about having those barriers. And it's, if you don't know your own boundaries and barriers, you're never going to be able to express them to others. And that's what that is. So, Mandy, I think you would love the conversation with Christina later today, because that's what she dives into and really breaks this down even more. Go ahead, Gavin. You sat up. I have a feeling you're going to ask a question.
Oh no, I was just sitting up. I was listening to everything still. I was just changing my position in the seat.
It was the way he moved in. I was positive he was about to be like, so B, and like really challenge something. I'm like,
No.
So, Mandy, there needs to be boundaries set up. See, right there. I clicked the other one and then that one popped up. But with this coming up and all this, Christina's been doing this for a few weeks now. Chapter 3 is on the YouTube network, Christina's Corner. Christina, shout out your social media handle so people can follow you.
Sure. The primary one that I use is Instagram. So it's just C, like the first letter of my name, and then my last name, Kimbrough, Kimbrough 1 on Instagram.
Boom, on all of them, so that way everybody can follow you and all that.
Yeah, thank
Perfect.
you.
All right, so what made you pick Brene Brown's book?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, her life has been her work has been life-changing for me. I've been following her probably for almost a decade, which is crazy to think about. But it's just helped me in my mental health journey, and she's like a big reason I've started sharing about sobriety and then mental health. Because I realized those were like under talked about topics. And I also have just grown up in a society and like place where we just didn't talk about our issues, right? We kept them silent. And, you're only as sick as your secrets.
Ooh.
So when, I
like that quote.
Yeah. And so if you, I didn't say that. That's not me. I don't know who said it. It's not me.
You say it so nicely too. I didn't say that.
Yeah, I know. I wish. But anyway, so I think as I was just trying to heal myself, right? Like, heal some mental health and dealing with a hospitalization and all this stuff, it really started there. I hospitalized myself. I think you know this, Brandon, but for suicidal ideation and a panic attack. And, that's right. Yeah, we talked about this with our tattoos. Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
You and I talked forever too. I just know Gavin's cuter than me. He won cutest guy on the network.
He is. He's pretty cute. Don't let it go to your head though.
I don't.
So I hospitalized myself and, I was there for like 3 days and I remember I got out and like everyone, my life was like, where are you? Cause you don't have your phone, whatever. And I just remember feeling so much shame about like, I didn't want to tell anyone I was there for a mental health issue, but I was really angry because I remember being like, if I had a broken leg or gotten a car accident, like someone would have come with like flowers and balloons and cards. Whereas like the mental health hospital, people didn't want to talk about it. They shied away. I even lost some friends just because they didn't want to deal with it. So anyway, I stumbled onto her work of the vulnerability and the shame. And I realized that I was feeling shame around my mental health journey.
Yeah. Christina, you are very vulnerable right now, opening up about that. I want to thank you for that because that's not any, like you mentioned the two things. You mentioned like big things that people struggle with, and you show your truth getting through that. Honestly, guys, I follow Christina on social media, and she's one of the accounts that pops up all the time because she's so positive. So know that she's really done her best to put the best that she wants out of herself out there to help others. And I that's why I love that she's here with us. We met because of a friend of ours that we both are like super in love with. She's one of the most amazing people in the world. Have you been watching her? She's been like sweating in like
doing
the desert.
Cool stuff. Yeah. She's always doing something.
She is 1 in a million. So going into what you were just saying, being vulnerable and you were in this state and you were dealing with mental health, that is a thing that a lot of people have struggled with. Men are known for not being willing to talk about it even more than women. With that being said, how can a male and a female interaction go to be able to open those barriers with being vulnerable? Because a lot of people they take the emotion and they think Christina's now has a crush on me, we were flirting, and it's not that. That's a male perspective on things. How can we break that to be vulnerable with boundaries?
Yeah, I love that so much. I mean, That's a great question, because I think it really depends on yourself and your intentions, right? Like, intention has been my big word for the year. So, I mean, I think very clearly, if you understand what the intention is in the conversation, whether it's to bond, to talk, to share, you don't have to come out and say, this is my intention, but like just being very clear on what you think that is, and then knowing your boundaries. Like a perfect example is like, I am a married woman, so I don't talk. I wouldn't like go to a guy like you know, and like pour out my heart. Like, my emotional issues need to be discussed. I mean, that's to me. Like, everyone's different. Like, I can't put rules on people. So I do think there's a line that maybe needs to be figured out within everyone's relationship, because, you know, emotional cheating is a thing where you're sharing something with a spouse, you know, that's not yours. Like, because emotional intimacy is a real thing. Yeah. But like what we've done, you know, with me sharing my story with you, Brandon, I mean, there's nothing, or Gavin, that's nothing I wouldn't tell anybody else. I don't broadcast it, but you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
It's okay in general to have conversations about mental health or things you're struggling with. I just would be on the cautious side of how much you share. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And where the conversation goes, because it is very easy to kind of tiptoe and go and cross a line.
Yeah, I agree. You're getting the comments of that too, 100%, Christina. With that, everyone's boundaries are different and therefore can be confusing, misinterpreted, or challenged by others. And I think that's a very good point by Brett, because I could have a boundary that I'm like, oh, Gavin is able to come over anytime he wants and just walk in the front door. And that's just whatever. Okay. But then I go to him. I can't just walk in his house and assume it's going to be the same way. Now, I wouldn't, because his dog is scary. And
nobody should ever just walk into my house. That's unless I specifically tell you that you are allowed to. That means that Dakota knows you well enough.
That's awesome.
Seriously, the first time he came over, I gave him a big hug, and he thought I just want to hug. I was like, no, this is so the dog doesn't eat you.
And it made sense, but it was the way he came around. He's like, hey, come here. And I'm like, there was a lot of life happening, and I was so like, oh, he wants a hug. I want a hug. I love hugs. I am
like, while I do enjoy hugs, I also I don't want you to be eaten.
I appreciate that. That.
Yeah, nobody should just walk into my house. That's a terrible idea.
So, Christina, you are married, and your husband is in the, I don't want to say it.
I
was right. I was going to say Navy. So with your husband being in the Navy, there's a lot of things with boundaries and with trust and conversation that has to happen. How have you noticed since you went into the hospital and your relationship with him, the change? Because was he with you when you went in, or no?
No, he was deployed.
So all of a sudden he's coming back and you're rebuilding a new self and all that. How was that change for you to build into a new relationship?
Great question. So I should say, I've been hospitalized twice for suicidal ideation, but the first time he was gone, he was on a deployment. And then the second time he was home. The first time I would say, well, we weren't married, so that makes a big difference. You know, we were still figuring things out. I mean, talk about vulnerability. I think it just kind of came with like learning how to communicate with someone that has severe depression and anxiety. There was a learning curve for sure. He's an amazing human, but he's also never had anyone in his family deal with mental illness to the severity of that I live with. So, you know, there was this phase of like, he was trying to fix me. And, you know, like when I couldn't get up off the couch, well, just get up, you're fine. You know, literally the worst thing to tell a depressed person. Please don't do that. If you need to know why, DM me. But anyway, you know, so there was, you know, there was a learning curve with that, and it just took time, and it wasn't pretty or perfect, and still isn't. But I would say we're in the best place now that we've ever been. And I think it's just a matter of communication, you know, and he knows like when I don't feel good, like, okay, a run is going to help you, even if you don't want to, or a walk, you know? So he'll say, what can you do? What can we do right now? You know, so asking me questions and putting it back on me to take care of my own health. Because someone that's dealing with mental illness, sometimes people tend to get controlling, or they just want to fix because they're not comfortable watching their loved one be in pain, which is understandable. I totally understand. You know, we are very, and myself included, we have a hard time sitting with people in their pain, right? Like we just want to fix it. We want to say take this medicine, do this. Like if I have been, the amount of times I've had someone tell me, well, did you try deep breathing or did you, and you're like, shut up, like, no, I didn't think of that.
I love that. No, because it's raw. It's real, because like, I don't think people understand that, like when you say that to a person who's in that state already, it's like you're kicking them emotionally.
Yes.
Your words
100%.
are literally like, and like I tell people, like, I hate fighting. I hate yelling. I really do, because I am a person that the minute you cross a certain like yelling threshold, I'm going to match it, and then I can be louder. And words, I love words. I really do. I use them in a lot of great ways. And my thing is when you're in a emotional state and you're yelling, the words that you choose are more daggers than actually like assisting.
Go ahead.
Absolutely. Go, Christina. This is your segment. I'm just sitting here.
I love this stuff. And so so when we are yelling, right? Like say we're in an argument, and I've certainly been there with my husband, our fight or flight or freeze, I think it's parasympathetic, don't quote me, but clicks on, right? So your brain is already stressed. Cortisol is flowing through your body. So long story short, it is not effective to scream at each other. You're not going to hear each other. I mean, I know it's real. Like this is like science. Like this is not, So my husband and I, again, not perfect at this, but we will say like, you know what, time out. Like we need to go our separate ways. Cause I'm sure everyone who's watching or you two in that argument or fucking rhetorically, you're just going in circles.
Yeah.
No one's hearing anything. It's because you're, she's right. Or he's right. Masculine energy is about
technically both. I mean, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to remove it. Technically both. He's talking about both energies, so we're gonna give him that. Yeah, she's right.
Sure. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, so it's what we've learned is it's super interesting. Yeah, you can't take back what you say 100%. And so we've learned it was interesting. So when he would go on 10-month deployments and we would fight, you can't really fight when someone on a ship. So, but the thing that was interesting that helped us is we would write, right? So I would email him and we'd fight through email. But I know. I mean, you're still in a relationship with somebody.
Yeah.
It still happens. Anyway, but we use it when he's here still. So like when I'm feeling something really strong, I email him. Like I write it out and before I send it, I reread it, right? So I'm not as emotional in there. And then as I'm writing, I'm actively calming down. And so I'm not saying things that I'm going to regret, that's going to ignite his anger, blah, blah, blah. So, and then I send it to him. And then he sometimes forgets to read it, which makes me more angry. But anyway, I literally sent this to you. You don't fucking see it. And he's like, I get 1,000 emails. Anyway, so, but that helps because then we can talk it through and my anger is not as high, right? Because I've taken the time and you've actually, and it's like a science thing. You've actually slowed your heart rate down. Your cortisol is not running through your head. You know what I mean? So you're in this place to have a better argument. And I've found, I mean, I don't do it every time, but
I love it. I hope Brett's agreeing with you 100%. He says it's best to write out, hold as a draft, then reread a while later after the emotions have settled.
That's exactly what I do. Again, not perfect. I hate people that sound like, I've got it all figured out. It's not always like that, but I would say like, I'll put it this way. The most productive arguments we've had have gone down like that. You know what I mean? Where it was just like, he read it and it'll be crazy. He'll be like, you know what? Like either one or two things happens. He says, oh, I see your point. Or he reads it out loud and I'm like, I'm fucking crazy. Like, or like, that wasn't even a big deal. What was I even talking about? So
Right. So in that moment when the emotions are rising and everything's happening and all that, you like to write and it helps get you calm. I will go... I will punch a punching bag. Yeah. I will go into work mode where I just start like fixing out things that I need to get done or organizing. Yeah. Mandy Atterbury says she puts on music, which I love to hear. Go for a walk or meditate. These are all things we all have heard, but finding the one that's yours that makes Gavin, what makes you Gavin when you all of a sudden you and I are in a conversation and Brandon is bringing the emotion? Because I'm an emotional creature. And I see people nodding in the background too. Thank you. And like, what do you do to make sure I don't trigger your emotions.
Mm,
And Christina, same thing for you.
Oh.
You haven't like dealt with me like that, but your husband, when you're in that moment, instead of fighting, how do you control your emotion to walk away? Do you put the music on? Do you just write?
In my head, I sort of I just kind of snap my fingers, and in my head I do that because that takes me out of my my lizard brain, so I'm able to evaluate the situation and say, okay, why are they acting like this? Where are they coming from? Like I come from a very empathetic point of view because like and then I take any sort of emotion that I did build up during that, and I just use that later when I'm doing a project or something like that, writing music, building something, doing whatever, because I have a million things to do anyway during a day, so I just put that energy towards that then. But in the heat of the moment, I just sort of snap myself best I can, as quick as I can out of that lizard brain and try to evaluate. And I have to do it multiple times.
Yeah.
Sometimes when it's a very heated situation, I just go, stop.
Yeah.
Stop. Like in my head, and say, okay, stop. Who are you? Who are they? What is going on? Reevaluate the situation again, so that way you don't lose your temper, you don't escalate things. One thing I do never is I never write. I will never write if I'm ever in a heated thing, because I do that as well. But if I'm writing to somebody, then my intention is to make sure that I put them in a corner and I put them down. Actually, the last time that I did write to somebody, I wrote them probably a book of emails. It was to my birth father when the time that my stepfather had died. And some very, very nasty things were said on my birth father's part. And so I sat down and I said, all right, yeah, you're done. And I essentially wrote down probably 2 decades worth of shit building up. And I haven't spoke to him since. And I go back and I read that email now and again, and all I can do is think to myself, wow, that was horrible and cold and probably the best writing I've ever done in my life.
Yeah.
And I don't regret it.
Yeah. A lot comes out when we write, right? I mean, that's so true.
Yeah, and that's why I don't do it whenever I'm angry at somebody, because my words are probably my greatest weapon. And when I'm able to sit down and collectively think and go over them, then they are made to tear you down. That's what they're there for. That's like, so that's why I don't use them unless I absolutely have to, or feel like I have to.
That's a great point. It's not going to work for everybody. I mean, maybe it is for you, like physically removing yourself. And I don't write every time. I mean, that's not conducive to life. But I mean, a lot of the time, even just taking a physical break, right? They say it takes about 20 minutes, to just kind of calm yourself down and get into a more like cognitive headspace. Because when you're screaming, it's just fight or flight. I mean, it's that like, oh, I'm getting attacked. Like your brain doesn't have the ability to tell like that you're not actually in danger. It just kind of shoots everything at you, because that's what it's meant to do. It's meant to keep us safe.
Yeah. Very well said. Very well said. So Christina is going to be joining in the chat after this.
Yes.
And she's going to be live at 1:00. But part of me wants you just to do the interview. Like, I think you and her are going to be here. You and Gavin and her. And I will jump in the comments and be in the back. Would you want to do that?
Yeah, whatever you guys want to do.
Because you bring such a good energy, and you and Gavin's conversation is great. And I think she's going to bring a lot, but I would like to see what you and her bring together. Something in me in the universe is telling me to let you run this, and I'm known for being spontaneous, but I trust the universe, and I think this is going to be great. She's not here yet, so I'm going to keep the conversation going for a second, but go ahead, Gavin. I heard I'm
actually going to grab some more water really quick.
That's important.
While you're doing that, yeah.
Hydrate.
Because I am thirsty and dehydrated.
And Brandon, I stop at noon, just so you know, like just a hard stop at noon.
That's fine. Yeah, we get off at noon before that anyways.
Yeah.
So
I don't want to be rude and like leave.
No, and then I have your show in the background ready. I just can't leave the studio, and we'll make sure we send you the link for that and like have you be able to have some fun, because that's going to be.
I'm so excited.
I love it. So Joe is the guy who works out. Joe is your guy's guy that's going to work out. He's going to run. He's going to go make sure he gets when his emotions kick in. And he's going to make sure wrong button. He's going to make sure that he is able to get his anger, aggression, agility, whatever he needs out.
I love it.
And excuse me. I think it's a great thing, but the writing in that, I like that you admit that's a good thing. Gavin writing, I think writing to somebody and like Brett said, holding it.
Yes.
Like universe request, no onesies. I'm sorry, the universe responded back. No, we all get onesies. They're gonna be flying soon. Everything's flying out of a plane, just landing in your yard. But like with that, it's set. Oh crap! I totally lost my train of thought because of that one. Onesies, all the onesies flying and came through my head. But being able to write down, I think is essential, because I write down a lot. And then when it comes to emotions, if I sit down to start writing, sometimes my mind is running faster than my hands.
Oh my gosh. I've had that trouble with journaling for the longest time. I still do.
Me too.
I want to journal mornings and evenings, but sometimes I'm so hyped up. You know, I have a girlfriend that told me, because she's very similar to us, fast processor and talker, and she's like, you know, bring out a voice memo or like talk, like put on your video, and you don't have to like record yourself, but just let it play and then just talk. And I've done that too when I'm in that headspace of like, I just need to get words out, because I'm the same. I get so angry that my hand can't move fast as my brain.
Yep. I'm the same way. Even typing, I can type like 130 words a minute, and I'm still like not able to keep. I'm like, and like there's misspellings and everything, and it's like, oh, I gotta go fix this then. But the writing really does let you let go, and I think if everybody like in the moment when you're about to fight, you write everything out, you put it down on paper for yourself, and then you go and make lunch, go take a seat, go for a jog, anything else for 20 minutes after you wrote, I think you'd notice your emotion that's been in there and the adrenaline that you're feeling from that, and that dictates how you're going to be able to respond to yourself. And then you're going to see, is this worth sending or not? Do I need to edit this more? I love that. Writing can be misinterpreted. So another technique is for you to write everything out and then talk it out through with the other party. It's 100% true. Marital fights would be less severe if the fighting was only done wearing onesies. 100%. I love that we are finally getting to this, people. We're getting to that point. Gavin, we have a special guest in the backstage right now, and we're getting ready to bring her on. I'm going to read her bio, and then I'm actually, the universe is, I felt it like right when Christina came on today. Christina's going to help with this interview today, and I'm going to be in the background having fun asking questions through the notes. But I want you to know, Tanya, if I'm saying that wrong, blame Gavin when you get on here.
Go ahead, yell at me. I'll be a punching bag. I'm fine.
He can take it.
I want you all to know how excited I really am to have Tanya on. She's going to bring an entirely great perspective, and you all know I'm huge into mental health and being an advocate for it. She is a student currently at UC Berkeley Business Administration, and I'm jealous because that is where I would like to get my PhD from one day. And I absolutely love, she is going to focus on mental health, the fields of high school charactering, and I'm going to name this wrong, NAMI, N-A-M-I.
National Alliance on Mental Illness.
I didn't even know that was a thing. I've been out of college for so long. Leave me alone. I'm sorry.
I'm gonna stay quiet, but I mean that's the only NAMI I know. It's like support groups for people dealing with mental illness
at colleges.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I did not have that when I was in college. God, do I feel old right now. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your comments together and bring on as we bring on Tanya, and I'm not even going to mispronounce her last name. Gavin can do that.
Hello, thank you so much.
Hi, how you doing? All right, so apparently I have been given the task to try to pronounce your last name, Kollipara.
The last name is 100% right. It is Kollipara.
There we go. Check that out, Brandon.
My first name, though, is pronounced Tanaya.
Oh, that's pretty.
Oh, he's in the background
you.
throwing his hands around. He's all upset.
No, you're totally fine. That is not the worst pronunciation I've heard. That's actually a very common mistake. No, you're all good.
Well, it's lovely to meet you. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I am in sunny California, so it's a nice 8 a.m. here. So I'm up bright and early for the first time in a while. I'm not going
Well,
to
good
lie to
morning.
you.
Thank you for being on here so early. I always have my alarm set for like 7 o'clock, and then it goes off, and I just go right back to bed until about 9.
I
That
feel you.
is me.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Starting next week, I'm going to try to have the discipline to be able to actually get up at 7 and start the day and get some stuff done, but we'll see.
It's okay. It's one day at a time. You're going to be 5 minutes early every day. Eventually, it'll be 7 a.m.
Right. So, tell us a bit about who you are and what exactly it is that you do.
Yeah, so hello everyone again. I'm Tanaya. I am, like in the little introduction, I am a current rising junior at UC Berkeley. I'm studying business administration and integrative biology. So I'm doing a little fun double major thing. And I'm also on the premed path. And growing up, I've had a really intimate look into mental health and mental illness with a lot of my loved ones and closest friends being diagnosed with various disorders, mental health disorders. And being part of the Asian community, I've seen the cultural stigma and how it's impacted them and how it's affected and prevented them from really being willing to go seek out help. And so in the past year and a half with COVID and quarantine and everything like that, I decided to go on a crazy journey and write my very first book, essentially sharing the stories and experiences of individuals from the Asian American community with mental health and mental illness to try to change that narrative and a lot of that misinformation that goes around in the cultural community about mental health and mental illness. So that's a little rundown about like what I'm doing, what's my life going on. So yeah.
That's phenomenal. Being in college then and being surrounded by your peers, have you seen a lot of encouragements from people who are, I guess, of the same culture that you're trying to break this stigma down in? Or are you seeing a bit of hesitation still from everything?
Yeah, so in college, definitely there's a lot of resources and there's a lot of efforts by administration and like campus clubs trying to encourage students to prioritize their mental health, educate about mental illness and everything like that, which is great. But it's still really, really hard. I noticed, especially for the Asian American community, it's really, really hard to let go of something that feels almost ingrained into you because growing up for a lot of these students, up until college, usually mental health, mental illness, that's not even talked about. Or if it is, it's just something you pretend not there, you just like nod your head politely and then move on. So definitely there is that hesitation and kind of fear about talking about mental health and mental illness because it's just not known. So yes, there is a lot of openness, but know in that it's still a learning process for a lot of people.
Is that across the board then between men and women as far as pushing it down below, or is it more like Western civilization where the men have to kind of push it down but the women can express it a bit more?
That's a really, really good point. So in the Asian American community, definitely it's similar to Western ideals where men have to be like the stoic like head figure, like they shouldn't be expressing their emotions or else they're mentally weak and they're not fit to be a man or like whatever that means, right? And so definitely men do have lower rates of seeking mental health help in the Asian American community as well.
Gotcha.
I want to jump in really quick. I love the work.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, I love the work that you're doing. I think, mental health is huge. And I think, like you said, even talking about it in your community specifically, what to end stigma or to get people to talk about, what do you think, what have you seen maybe work or what do you think can work, that kind of thing?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So since high school, I've been really involved in mental health work and trying to advocate. And I've tried doing the whole awareness campaigns, education campaigns in high school. And unfortunately, it really did not help. A lot of students were reluctant to hear about it. They were really reluctant to even learn about it. And it just turned, I remember at one point it was being criticized because they're like, this is a joke, it's not even serious, it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
And it's really disheartening to see, but ultimately those like purely education campaigns aren't, I feel, as effective. And so that's why I decided to write this book, because what I realized is what helps people understand are stories. Stories are how we learn. That's how we create empathy, how we understand. And ultimately, if we share the stories and experiences that people have with mental health and mental illness, I'm hoping, and that's what I've kind of seen more so as I entered college, people come to be more understanding and have a greater appreciation and are less afraid, if that makes sense.
I love that.
You're talking about writing stories then. So is this a fiction or a nonfiction kind of novel?
Yeah, I would like to say it's a cross. So it's a creative nonfiction. So it definitely it has that like facts and information and research, because I do want people to be informed about the reality that mental health is a serious issue and it's literally like killing people, and we need to put more emphasis on it and really recognize the importance of it. But also it's kind of in a way creative fiction that in relating people's stories, because the core of my book are their stories, I kind of paint the scenes and kind of get a little creative with the writing part of it, because I don't want it to be just a spot like person A did this, person A then did that. So I really want it to be like something people could connect to.
Yeah, well, I think it's a very creative angle, and it's interesting because it's kind of an obvious angle that nobody really sees, is the storytelling aspect. You know, anytime if you look at any religion, they've all been passed down through storytelling, through sitting around a fire, sitting at the dinner table, going to some sort of mass gathering, and talking about all these different stories, and then picking them apart and finding the beliefs and morals behind it. So I think that this is actually really strange, like oddly niche category that you found yourself go into for this. How's the sales and how's the response been to it? You've been selling a lot of people who bought it. Have they been talking positively? I speak English, I promise you. Have they been speaking well about it?
Yeah, no, you're all good. But
positively. There we are.
Yes, there we go. Awesome. Yeah, so currently my book is going to be published in August of this year. So I'm wrapping up like the final revisions, kind of finalizing cover, all that fun stuff. And I did have a pre-sale campaign, however, and the reception has generally been really supportive. There's quite a few people who've been open to reading and learning. And I think the biggest factor of that is the fact that, again, like I was saying, it centers around those stories. You made a great point that in religion, that storytelling is a huge part of how people share and how people come to understand those morals or beliefs, or like essentially the way we want to live our lives, right? We kind of reference these stories and we use them as like inspiration. So I feel like that storytelling aspect has definitely made people interested, because especially in the Asian American community, there's a lot of people not willing to share the stories because of the stigma that's in the community. But then the stigma in the community continues because no one's willing to share their stories. You know, it's like this never-ending cycle. Yeah, exactly. It's like a never-ending cycle. So I was like, okay, here's a book. People can remain anonymous, so it protects their identity, but ultimately their stories are being shared and people can come to understand it.
Do you
go ahead.
Okay. Do you mind, like, maybe you don't have to tell us one of the stories, but just maybe like an overview of what kind of conditions you talk about, like anxiety, depression, like, and then old, young, like, I'm just curious to see what kind of stories you've included.
Yeah, of course. So I have the youngest individual featured in the story is about 16, but for a lot of individuals, their stories start from way younger. So their first kind of experiences with mental health symptoms start like in middle school, or even for some a little younger than that. So anywhere from 16 to about 55. So I definitely have a range of ages, because I want people to understand, like, oh, it's not just like a teenage thing or something that adults don't go through, and it's not something serious for adults because like they're mature or whatever. So that's why I really wanted to be diverse in terms of age range, and also gender and gender identity, sexual identity, as well as the idea of Asian, super, super diverse. Like there's Asian Indian, there's East Asians, and then there's Southeast Asians. There's so many different regions that the continent of Asia includes. So I wanted to try to bring as many people as possible from different backgrounds. So I try to be as diverse as possible in terms of the stories that I share.
I have a couple questions here for you. How do you respond to people saying mental health is just a fad or an easy excuse for younger generations?
That is definitely, unfortunately, something that I hear quite often, especially from parents that don't understand. They feel like, I'll speak more so from the Asian American community because that's something that I know personally of. And for a lot of immigrant parents, they come from these really like harsh conditions and these harsh environments. And so for them, they went through pretty like tough things. And for them, when they see that they're providing their children with like a home and with a like food on the table and a place to sleep, live, and be safe, they don't understand why their child might be experiencing anxiety, why their child might be experiencing depression. And so there's this idea that your physical environment, like if your needs are met, you shouldn't be experiencing any mental health symptoms, but that's not the case and that's not the reality. So oftentimes when people ask me that question or they come up with that, it's more so they're not informed. So the only way to kind of respond to it is to explain like, hey, it's not, because all your needs could be met. You could be the richest person in the world with all of your needs met. You could be living a very comfortable, luxurious life, but that doesn't mean that you cannot experience mental health disorders, that you cannot have a mental health illness, that you won't experience the symptoms of mental health. So
I think the reason why it gets questioned so much as well is because, unfortunately, you do have people who, for work instance, will take advantage of, like, you have the majority of the people who naturally do actually have these conditions, but then you also have people who say, I don't want to go to work today. I'm going to call in for a mental health day and just say that I'm having an attack or something like that because I don't want to go in. And that's where I think more so now with the newer generations, because from what I've come to understand, a lot of my employers anyway, or a lot of my coworkers have been pretty understanding as far as the mental health crisis goes. But then we can also tell when somebody's bullshitting us. And then that makes it kind of hard to say, okay, well, now who's crying wolf and who's actually being a part of it? I think that's where like the toxicity comes into people saying, oh, it's a fad or it's an easy excuse. It's because they've experienced before people not being truthful about it just because they don't want to actually do something, which is a small part of it, but unfortunately it gets grouped in with the majority.
Yeah, I completely understand. It's really tough because you want to create the safe space and you want to give everyone the benefit of the doubt, but when you like go through those experiences where people are kind of taking advantage of the fact that they're supporting those who might be experiencing a basically like poor mental health or something like that, or a mental illness, right? It's difficult. I totally understand. So it does become easy to generalize like that, even if it's like the minority of the majority.
Tokyo Bento has an awesome question right here. Is mental health a first world problem?
That is such an amazing question. First of all, no, it is not a first world problem. Even if you go to third world countries, a lot of individuals do experience mental health symptoms and have mental illness. I think the biggest difference is that usually when you go to like more third world countries or war-torn countries, or people when they're facing like extreme poverty and things like that, that kind of takes a backseat. So to them, that's like, I can't even worry about that. I can't even think about that. So it becomes almost like they pretend it doesn't exist. And so that's why it's so easy to view mental health as a first world problem and that it's not a big deal, because you're so concerned about meeting your other needs, like food and shelter, and will you have enough money to pay bills for the month, like that.
See, I think that you could argue, though, that it would be considered a first world problem, though, just because of the pyramid of needs that you need to be met. So if you are worried about like your home, your food and stuff like that, then while those problems may do exist, if you don't acknowledge them at all because you can't, like you just mentally do not have the capacity to worry about trying to feed yourself and your loved ones, to worry about your anxiety or depression and things like that, then do they really exist? If you have no actual interaction with them, if you have no acknowledgement of them at all because you're worried about basic needs, then do those other needs exist, and does that really make them problems then?
I feel like it definitely does impact people's day-to-day lives, because ultimately the symptoms will still manifest and they'll still experience it. It's just people really push it down. They push it down so deep that they kind of are blind to what they might be experiencing, and they just attribute it to other things like the stress of being in that situation or your current environmental like conditions, whatever they may be. But I feel like it still has an impact, and especially if you look at more severe mental illnesses, that's not, for a lot of people, that's not something they can ignore, even if they're experiencing more extreme like environmental conditions like poverty or like basic meeting the basic needs. So it very much exists. It's just more so, where is it on that priority, even though it might impact them, whether or not they're cognizant of that. All
right, fair enough. I like that. So one thing that I'm curious about, first off, if I may ask, what is your age? How old are you?
Oh yeah, I'm 19. I'm turning 20 in a couple months.
Okay.
Or 1 month, actually.
being that young, then, do you worry about people when putting out this book that is a very, very mature book? It is a bit of what one will say is ahead of your time. Do you worry about people saying, well, what is her credibility to write this book? What is her life experience? Why should I listen to a 19, 20-year-old on how to live a happier, healthier life and deal with my mental illness when I'm deep into my 30s, 40s, whatever they may be?
Yeah, no, that is definitely something I really thought about before I even began writing the book. And ultimately, no matter what age you are, no one's truly an expert. It's more so doing your research and connecting with people who kind of study the field and getting as many diverse opinions and voices as possible, and just building your credibility through authentic work that also takes into like all the amazing research that's out there and all the individuals who work in the mental health field. So that's ultimately what I do to try to offset my younger age, is that I've talked to, I don't even know, like more than 50 different professionals and people who have experienced mental illness and mental health struggles in their lives. So it's not, I do have personal experience. I do have a lot of loved ones who I've seen growing up since I was young be impacted by it. So I do have a personal experience, but at the same time, I don't want that to be the end all be all, because ultimately I am still always learning, and I think anyone is always still learning more about it. So just getting those diverse perspectives and opinions, that's kind of like how I'm trying to, combat the fact that I'm really young.
I'll jump in. I'm a decade older than you, but I have still gone through that. And because I share my story very openly on Instagram and a blog about mental health as well. And, people have done that. They're like, oh, you're not a therapist, or you don't have, the letters behind your name. And I always say, but you know what? You are an expert in your experience, right? Exactly. So you're an expert in that. And so if people come at you with that, that's just like, well, I hear what you're saying, but also like my lived experience is I'm the expert in my life, right? And as long as you're not like saying you're not, an expert in anything else, like if you just own that part of your story, it's true. And no one else has your experience. And that's why it's so valid and important for you to write a book. So I just wanted to share that really quick.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Aw.
And then I have another question here. How can an individual know if someone can be a good mentor or not?
Yeah, so just for a little bit clarification, good mentor just in the general sense, or?
I think he means how could somebody tell if somebody is truly knows what they're talking about with the subject, or if somebody's just really good at bullshitting their way through?
That's a really good question. I think the biggest thing is a person will acknowledge that they don't know everything, and because they know and they acknowledge that they are not a end-all be-all, all-knowing foreseeing being, that they will seek out people who know more than them, and they will seek out to learn from them in order to be able to impart that knowledge to you. So I feel like that's the biggest thing to see. Are they willing to learn, and are they willing to understand that they're going to be wrong sometimes and that they don't know everything?
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. It's funny, the more you start to learn, the more you realize you have no idea what the hell is actually going on.
Exactly.
So take me through a bit of a journey of your life, your upbringing. What got you so interested in all this to the point where you wanted to write a book? What was your childhood like? What was your upbringing? And then how did that change when you went to college? Because I'm sure it changed very drastically, especially going to Berkeley.
Yeah, so I was born in California and I moved around a lot. Growing up, even up until this point, we're moving again. I have not lived in a city or town for more than 4 years. That's the maximum number of years I've ever been in a place. So growing up like with my family, I've definitely met a lot of different people from all the different walks of life from all over the United States. So I've literally lived across the country. And because I've met so many different people, I feel like I've been exposed to a lot of different life experiences and different viewpoints and different essentially issues that impact people. And one of the biggest things that was really consistent no matter where I went is the way mental health impacted my friends as well as a couple of my family members. I've seen it, and I've seen how the cultural stigma specifically for the Asian American community, it literally prevented my loved ones from going to the psychiatrist, or even when they finally did, they stopped going. They didn't want to even think about the therapist. They stopped taking their medication because they were afraid what would people say and what would people see. And it's really disheartening, especially when you can see it's impacting their day-to-day activities. And it's like, oh, if you could just, go to the therapist or just take medication, maybe you'll be able to, be able to live a more productive life and not have to experience these symptoms to such a severe degree. But at the same time, I can't blame them because the stigma is so strong, the judgment's so strong that anyone would be afraid to go and do that. Anyone would be reluctant. And I've seen it with my friends when they did finally open up to their extended family or the general cultural community, the backlash is unimaginable. It's literally unimaginable. They will start talking about you, saying oh, she's not right in the head. They'll tell their kids don't go near her or him because he's not mentally sane. Even if it's something like anxiety or depression, people don't understand, and that really affects the way even anyone who might not have been open about it, affects the way how people see their mental health symptoms and mental illness. So in seeing that growing up, it was really disheartening. But then going to college and seeing how a lot of student advocates really Christina, like you said, you're sharing your story, that helps. And I saw that really, really helps talking and speaking about what your experiences are. And then I realized in the Asian American community, unfortunately, there's not that many people talking about their experiences because, like I said, that cultural stigma and judgment is so strong. It's scary. It's terrifying. I would be terrified to go and go to my extended relatives and tell them all about it. Even now, it's a really hard conversation to have with them because it's hard for them to understand. They're like, great, you're writing a book, but they don't want to have an extra conversation about what the book is about. So it is really difficult, but seeing what other people did with their storytelling, I think really helped open my eyes that this is a powerful tool. This is how people can understand. And so that's kind of how I got to this point.
Okay. No, go ahead.
You're good.
So it's very interesting. I love what you were saying because I understand, I've gotten pushback too from sharing, my own personal story from family, or even not pushback. I think the one that hurts the most to me is when you share something very vulnerable and they don't say anything, you know what I mean? Or they're just not willing. So I think you kind of touched on that when you said, you wrote the book or you would share, or you're writing the book, you're going to share it. And then people don't want to talk about it. I'm just curious, how do you handle that? What do? You don't have to have an answer, tell us what to do, but I'm just curious, how do you cope with that?
Yeah. So actually, I think the way I'm able to cope with that comes from an individual I interviewed very, very early on when I started my book writing journey. And this one thing that she said really stuck with me was, you can't make people change their minds.
Yeah.
You you can try to share your story, and what you're doing is amazing. And those who are open and willing to it, their minds or their perspectives will be changed, and they will benefit immensely from it. But ultimately, it's not on you to go and change someone else's mind. But keep saying what you're saying, keep doing what you're doing. But ultimately, you shouldn't feel like responsible or like take it upon yourself that you have to be the one to change their mind. When they're willing, when they're ready, when they're open, they will. It'll be a transformative experience for them. But it's not on you. Like, don't take it personally. So I feel like that exactly, that was so good. I was like, oh my God, like that completely changed it for me, because up until that point, I always thought, no, it's on me. Like, I should keep going and be really persistent and really show them why it's important. But no, what I should be doing is just keep speaking my truth and sharing other people's truths, present the stories, and those who are ready and open, they will be receptive to it. And those who just aren't ready yet, that's okay. That's all right. They will get there hopefully eventually. And if not, there's nothing you can do about it right now. Yeah,
I think that goes perfectly with this next question here, and that's similar to how I actually go about it as well. So how can a person be vulnerable to a family member that doesn't understand the mental health issues while keeping boundaries of their own? The way that I go about it, I'm a musician, I write music, and I'm very vulnerable and very sensitive about what I write sometimes. But the way that I go about it is I write it, I record it, and I put it out. And whoever listens to it, if they want to talk about it, then I'd be happy to talk about it. But I try not to push it or force on anybody that I think might be uncomfortable with it. I think like a family member might not agree with some of the things that I say in a song or the way that I sing or whatever. I wait for them to listen to and then come to me about it for the discussion, because I feel like I'm being vulnerable enough by just putting it out there for anybody and everybody to listen to.
Exactly. And that's a great question, because a section of my book actually focuses on that, because it's really hard, because you want your parents' support, but your parents might be caught up in their own unaddressed mental illness or own unaddressed mental health struggles, or they're just really entrenched in the stigma that exists in the cultural community. And it's hard for anyone to look past it when all your life, like 30, 40 years of your life, you were told one thing and all of a sudden your kid is telling you another thing. Yeah. It's really hard to let go of. It's really hard. And so the biggest piece of advice I could say is try to have that conversation with them. But ultimately, if you see that it's not fruitful or it's only impacting your mental health further, don't push it. Find your support in your friends or a teacher or any other trusted adult, whoever that is. Find your support system elsewhere, as long as it's safe and it's actually supporting your mental health. I just want to say that, because I know it's really easy for people to enter into toxic relationships or these online communities that people enter. While they can be great, they can also be really, really dangerous and not really help your mental health. Obviously, be careful about that. But ultimately, try to have that initial conversation. Be ready that might not go the way that you would want it to. And if it doesn't, it's okay. It doesn't mean that your mental health or your mental health struggles or your mental illness are not valid or they're not important or that you're making it or you're being over dramatic. That's the thing I really hear. Like, they think they're being over dramatic and they're burdening their parents. No, that's not the case. But the thing is, you can't force people to understand, and that extends to your parents, who are just people ultimately at the end of the day. And so just finding that support system elsewhere is the biggest piece of advice I can give. And for a lot of people that I talk to, it took their parents years and years and years to finally understand that, oh, this is actually important. It does actually affect my child. Now I want to be supportive and be there for them. So maybe down the road it will change, but until then, don't burden yourself or don't just, make it more difficult for you and hurt your own mental health, trying to make them understand. Find those other places that you can go to.
Absolutely. Well, Bob Seymour even says right here, I suffered from severe PTSD. Overcoming the stigma was difficult, but seeking professional help was essential to my recovery. I had to write everything that was in my mind to keep my sanity. Mm-hmm. So it took him, however long to get over that stigma of, hey, you're not supposed to feel this. You're not supposed to have it. It doesn't exist. And then finally seeking professional help to eventually work with it, deal with it, and recover from it. Yeah. And then Tokyo Benso right here says, have you connected with Asian organizations to assist the Asian communities to partner up and spread information? Are you working with any sort of like local community or even national or global communities to get your book out there and get your word out there?
Yeah, so I did have the honor of interviewing an individual who works with NAMI California. So National Alliance on Mental Illness is this national organization that really focuses on trying to fight the stigma around mental health and mental illness, while also providing resources for individuals who may be struggling with their mental health or who have a mental illness. So I've been working with my local NAMI chapter as well as NAMI California as a whole. And I've also had the opportunity to connect with more grassroots organizations like the Asian Mental Health Collective. They are such a great platform and group that really tries to destigmatize mental health and provide all these resources for the Asian American population. So those are two that I've had the delight of being able to, work with and talk with. So those are the two ones.
Yeah. Do you have a website for them and for yourself as well?
Yeah, my website is currently under construction. So I don't have a website for myself, but
that's all right.
I do have a website for the Asian Mental Health Collective. I can drag
if you put it in the private chat, if you put it in the private chat, then I can drag it over.
Perfect. Let me do that right now.
Yep, you're good. In the meantime, how has your family responded to any of this? I know you said some of them are like, oh, that's great that you're writing a book, but then they don't really talk much further about that. Is that more like your extended family or your immediate family or siblings? Like, how's everybody kind of responded to what you're doing here?
Yeah, so that is definitely more so with my extended family. And I think that comes from so my parents immigrated to the United States before I was born, in like the late 1990s. And so all my extended family is still in India. So that's where my cultural background comes from. And so for them, mental health doesn't exist. Mental illness, not even a real thing. So while they're all excited and ecstatic, like, oh my God, my niece or nephew or granddaughter or whatever is writing a book, they don't want to talk beyond that. They're not even really willing. And
they see the success in the business aspect of it.
Exactly. Unfortunately, that's their focus, because it's like, oh, it's an achievement or whatever that means. But for my family, like my parents and my younger sister, they have been super supportive. It's still like kind of a foreign concept for my father, but he's like trying his best to understand and learn more about it as I write this book. So it's been a great way to kind of have that conversation with him. My mom has been a huge proponent of mental health, although like obviously the cultural stigma is hard to shake off. And my sister is like me, super into mental health and mental illness advocacy. She's been super supportive about it. And generally my friends obviously have been super supportive about the whole process as well. It's just the greater cultural community, like family, friends, and things like that. They, again, like same thing as with my extended relatives. Like, great, you're doing a book, that's so amazing. But then they don't even want to talk beyond that. That's it. That's the extent of the conversation, unfortunately.
Gotcha. How long did it take you to write the book?
I started about a year and a half ago to start doing the interviews and things like that. And I've been working on the manuscript for the past year now. So it's been a while.
Are you doing it all yourself, or do you have any kind of ghostwriter or editor or?
Yeah, so I am actually working with New Degree Press, and they're a hybrid publisher. And so essentially they provide they're a hybrid publisher associated with Georgetown University. So I came across it at the beginning of quarantine. Like, I don't even know how I came across it, but I did. And I decided to be part of their program, and they basically create like a community of like first-time authors, and they provide you with editors, with like cover artists and all that jazz that you have with a traditional publisher, but you still retain all rights to the book. And I thought that was such a great balance for especially like me as a first-time author, and I love the idea like there's this community of people who are writing a book for the first time as well about so many amazing things. So that's how it's going. So right now I'm working on the revisions part. Like I'm almost done with it. I'll be done by the end of this month, and I'll be going to copy editing, and then I'll revise a little bit more after that. But that's the point where I'm at. Yeah.
That's so exciting. Do you, just curious, so we talked about it a little bit, but like, what would you say your overall goal is, or like kind of like your hope for the book? Like, once it's out there and in people's hands, like what are your hopes / like dreams for the book?
Oh, you're muted, hon.
There we go. Can you hear me
There you go.
now?
Yeah. Yes, I can. Loud and clear.
Okay, perfect. So, you got cut off for me in the very beginning, so I'm so sorry. Can you repeat?
Oh, you're fine. No, I probably muted myself as well. So I was just asking. So like, once the book's done and like out into the world, what are your hopes, for the book? Like, what, in an ideal world, perfect world, what like impact would the book have?
Yes. In my perfect ideal world, I would want this book to be read by not only people part of the Asian American community to kind of understand these stories and start to have conversations with their family and their friends about mental health and mental illness, and start, like, to be crass about it, start being less judgmental about it. Like, get rid of that stigma and stop being really, really judgmental, unfortunately. But also, in my perfect ideal world, mental health professionals who might not share the same cultural background read it to understand what are the values, what are the factors, what are the things that might be affecting their Asian American patients, or even people who are not part of the Asian American community, reading it to see what their friends or their peers or coworkers, whoever that may be, like, why are they not really able to seek help? Why do they find it so difficult to express their emotions and to, do and basically take care of their mental health, like to understand the why in order to have more empathy when speaking about it with their friends or family or peers or coworkers, whoever it may be. So that's what my perfect ideal world would be like. Basically, the book starts the conversations and helps people understand it better and really regard people with more empathy rather than judgment. I feel like that would be, if it helps one person or one family do that, I'd be the happiest person in the world, because that's going to have a butterfly effect for generations. Because if one family kind of changes the perspective on it, then the kids and the kids' kids, and as you keep going on, you're going to have a changed perspective and hopefully a better, a more of an emphasis on the importance of mental health.
Yeah, I love it.
Really good question right here. What has been your biggest challenge being in college, writing a book, and having mental health issues? And then as well, if you have I'm not sure if you do or not, if you have a job as well, that'd be another thing to add on top of that. But just sort of juggling all these different aspects.
Yeah, so it's definitely, obviously there are weeks where I am so overwhelmed with school, and you have finals, midterms, and then I do work part-time with a nonprofit organization, so you have work and work responsibilities, and then you have writing deadlines. So definitely there have been times where it's a little overwhelming, but I feel like because I kind of really spaced out my interviews and conversations. So even as I was writing, I still continued having interviews because I might find this story that I really, really need to include because it provides a new perspective. When you have those conversations with sometimes these complete strangers, right, and they are revealing some of the most intimate details of their lives because they want people to understand what they're going through, it just honestly reminds me why I'm doing it, and it gives me the motivation to keep pushing forward and thinking like, okay, this is just one bad overwhelming week, but the next week might be better, or one bad overwhelming month, but the next month could be better. So it's just kind of seeing the potential impact this book can have, and the fact that it's sharing people's truths and helping uplift people's stories and voices, which I think is so, so important in these conversations. That's what keeps pushing me forward. So not to say that I don't get overwhelmed and stressed. That happens to the best of anyone, but it's just kind of taking care of yourself, obviously taking the time to rest, recuperate, and do what you need to do in order to ensure that you're doing okay, but also knowing what my book is doing or knowing what I'm doing is going to hopefully one day help someone. That just keeps me going.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
But along those lines, I always love, asking people, do you have any self-care practices that you love or that you could share?
Yeah. So for me, honestly, going outside and just disconnecting.
Yeah.
It is especially right now with still a lot of our things online as we're slowly transitioning back into in-person, disconnecting from the online world, just going outside and being with like as cheesy as it sounds.
It has real healing effects. Yeah,
it does. It genuinely does. And for me, I started like going out at night and just like looking at the stars. Like that to me is so calming. So that's one of the biggest things that I do. I'm feeling really overwhelmed, or I feel myself kind of like panicking in a way. I will just kind of drop everything, literally drop everything, and just remove yourself from the stressor of that situation and allow yourself to like slowly calm down. So that's the biggest thing. Another thing is reading. I love reading. I am book obsessed. So the idea of escaping into a little fantasy world, it's so nice. It's a great way to like take a break from real world and reality while still like just like refreshing your mind in a way.
Love it.
Yeah. One of the other questions that we have right here: what if mental, in quotations, was changed to another word to avoid the stigma, like success awareness is the example given by Tokyo Bento? Do you think that would change anything, or do you think it'd be sort of like a temporary change until people eventually reapply the stigma and it has to be changed again? Like that's something that happens with racial ethnicities, calling people a certain thing. Over time, it is changed over and over again as one thing gets deemed offensive and another thing gets deemed appropriate. Do you think that changing that would help with the stigma, or would just be sort of a temporary thing?
I personally believe ultimately it would just be a temporary fix, because you're not addressing the root cause of that stigma, which comes from usually like misinformation or this idea like, oh, it's something like, for some people they think it's like contagious, or they think that it's because you're not praying enough, like especially if the family or the individual comes from a highly religious background. So while changing the name might kind of maybe temporarily help people to kind of break that association that might be contributing to the stigma, ultimately it's just going to create a new association if we don't address the root causes of that stigma. So that's why I feel like keeping the name as is great. It's totally fine, because ultimately even if you change it, like it's not going to help in the long run. That's why it's more important to kind of help not just educate, but share with people like the realities of mental health and mental illness, and like demystify it, because I feel like there's just so much like mystery and like unknown things around mental health and mental illness for a lot of families. So just going into the root cause and addressing those root causes of why people hold that stigma would be a lot more effective in the long run, I feel.
Yeah, and I think two things real quick just to jump in. I think that I think we have made headway, really, I do, because I'm like 10 years older than you. And like when I was in college, like we weren't even talking about mental health, it just like wasn't a thing. And so I was sharing earlier, I was hospitalized for suicidal ideation, but I was 25, but I'd had these symptoms for a long time. So the first thing would be, I think we have made strides in ending the stigma. So I think from a branding perspective or marketing, like if you change the name, it would just become confusing. You know what I mean? We could kind of lose the work that we'd already done. And then honestly, if you change it also, I think it would play into the stigma more, because it's like we're taking the mental out of it. Well, why, right? Is it bad to talk about mental illness? Like, is mental illness even a bad word? And in part of my like mental health advocacy, I want to like get people away from thinking illness or mental illness or condition is a bad word or a bad thing.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. Yes, exactly. That's exactly my thoughts.
Yeah.
Oh, I think a lot of it just starts with the fact that right now what we're doing, we're in the stage of making people aware of it, making people accepting of it, making people actually research in it. Once we get past this stage, the nice thing is that while it is a very big stage to get over, then the next stage is simply just making the next generation, while they're young, very comfortable with it. And that's something that everybody can do on your own as you start to have kids, is teach them, hey, you're going to feel things. You're going to have emotions. That's okay. You can't control that you have emotions. You can't control your emotions. What you can do, though, is understand them and understand how to go about them and understand that other people have emotions and how to go about it when they're having specific ones, whether it's anger, depression, happiness, maybe they're some sort of bipolar even, like whatever it is. That's the next step, is learning yourself and then teaching the next generation.
I love it. And I have to say, like, seriously, guys, props to both of you, because y'all are both young. I'm like a decade older than you both. But it's amazing the place that you're at. You're already ahead. And it's exciting to me because it's like, I'm 32, so I'm married. Like, I want kids in the next couple of years. And I'm now doing that work right now to teach myself, to heal myself, to learn how to have those emotions. So eventually I can have kids and teach them. It's called like SEL, like social emotional learning. So to teach them that, just like Gavin said, like emotions are okay. And like, it's just really what we do with them. That's what I always tell people. People say bad or good emotions. I'm like, not really. I think it's more how you respond to them and the behaviors that result once you've had those feelings. So, I mean, I'm so encouraged by meeting you. I think there's a lot of good, I think it's easy, I think, when you're in this work to, at least I feel this way, get overwhelmed and be like, oh my God, there's so much work to be done. But at the same time, I love to look back and be like, you know what? Like, both of you are perfect like examples of the fact that like we are doing better. Like when I was 19, I was having anxiety and depression, but like we just didn't talk about it.
Yeah. Well, right here, Tokyo even says, kids use mental to tease. And that, while that is true and is unfortunate, you also have to take into account, kids use everything to tease. Kids are mean. They're learning a packing order. When you have a group of children together, they are learning who is the strongest, the loudest, and the most dominant. They don't even realize they're doing it. So as parents, then we need to equip our kids and our children and teach them how to deal with those situations, how to de-escalate rather than be aggressive, how to be defensive with it, and learn to sidestep those attacks rather than go in full force and hurt both of you. That's what we need to start learning. Some other questions here are all related to your book. When is it being released again?
Yeah, it's being released August 2021, so towards the end of August. So that's the release date. Super exciting.
Awesome. And then where will it be released? Amazon, a special websites. Where can we find it?
Yeah, it will be released on Amazon and Barnes & Noble, so you'll be able to grab a copy through either of those venues, and also, depending on the location, mostly in California because that's where I am, local books as well.
That's so
gotcha.
Cool.
How do I get an autographed copy of the book?
Just honestly email me and I will sign and send. I would love to do that.
Awesome. I would absolutely love to read it, and I would love to get a signed copy of it as well. So when you do very successful, because I'm assuming that you are going to write at least one more book, and if this one does not do as well as you hope it to at first, it will in the future, and I want to make sure that I have one of those original copies of it. What was the other question? Oh, so we actually do a book club here. Christina is the one who hosts it.
Yeah.
Yes, she hosts it. We're on chapter 4 of our first book right now, and we're wondering if eventually, once we continue with this book and other books, we have quite a list already. We have a lot of authors that come on. If you would be interested in having your book be one of the ones talked about, you could come on. You could discuss each chapter or some of the chapters with us and get more in depth with it.
Yes, of course. I'd be so honored to.
Wonderful. Awesome. That would be an absolute blessing. So yes, Tokyo Bendo, you did say it was going to be on Amazon, correct?
Yes, it will be on Amazon. I will, if you would like more updates on the book, because I know right now my website is under construction. I'm woefully underprepared. I apologize.
You're all right. That's another thing I was going to say. Keep us updated when your website is up, so that way we can put that on as well. We can talk about that in an episode. Say, hey, the website's up. Go check it out. Go get the book.
Yes, of course. I will let you know. But also, if you would like to follow my author journey on Instagram, because it does have updates, you can follow me at Tanaya Writes. So TANAYA WRITES. So Tanaya writes, that's my Instagram. So you're welcome to follow me there for the quickest updates in terms of like when the book will be released, just updates about the whole book journey and about mental health and mental illness in general as well. And yeah.
Awesome. Any last thing that you would like to plug in before we do our last little segment here?
There's nothing that I want to particularly plug in, but the biggest thing that I just really want to say is, first of all, thank you so much for having me on the show and letting me just, talk about my experiences and talk about something that's really, really important to me. And I hope that whoever is out there listening, that you learned a little bit of something about mental health and mental illness, as well as the Asian American community, because May is Mental Health Awareness Month and AAPI month. So
that's right.
family intersected. Yeah.
Awesome.
So.
I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bring Brandon back in real quick, and then we're going to do our final words for the day. Is the last segment that we do where we all go around, give some last thing of positivity or something that had to do with the episode or just any little bit of knowledge that you'd like to share with the world. So I'm going to bring Brandon back in really quick. Hey, buddy. You're muted.
I was trying to be polite in the back. I was writing things. I was going around like typing.
I know your questions were wonderful. I appreciate it.
I'm like sitting here going, at least I'm not yelling like I usually do. I'm like, oh, I have a question about this, and like getting all excited. I'm in the back typing 100 miles an hour.
Yeah. So I will go ahead and go first, and then I will have Christina, Brandon, and then you will go last as our guest. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Awesome. So today, from today's episode, what I like to take from it and kind of recap is that when it comes to your mental illness or somebody else's mental illness, you are being vulnerable. You are taking it at your own pace, and you should take it at your own pace for what you do accept and how much you research. But the important thing to remember is that it will not get better until you start to research and you start to accept the issues that you or your partner or your friend or whoever has, and then learn those ways to deal with it. That is the first step to progress as a community in it. The second step is to take the knowledge that you have acquired and to pass that on to the next generation as young as possible. As soon as they are able to comprehend what you're telling them, teach your children about mental illness. Teach your children about their emotions and how to deal with them. Teach your children about how to help others when they're going through a depression, when they're going through an anxiety attack, when they're having some sort of mental breakdown. That is the only and the best way to really get through this. It's not through drugs. It's not through just pushing it to the side. It is through facing it head on and taking things at your own pace.
Love it.
I'm still singled out. I always forget how to switch the channels.
You did good. You did well. Yeah. So, man, how do I follow that, Gavin? I think my biggest thing is, just as she was saying in the interview, like sharing. Don't underestimate the power of storytelling. Because storytelling does, I say this, I didn't come up with it, but storytelling saves lives. I know it saved mine. I know that sharing my struggle with suicidal ideation and panic attacks, and then now being in recovery from alcoholism has saved my life. So I would say, if you're in the struggle and you feel okay, or you're dealing with it, share your story, and it doesn't have to be on a big platform. It can just be individually. And then on the other side, that if you are hearing someone's story or you're receiving it, just be empathetic. So that's kind of my takeaway for today.
Love it. Brandon, you are up.
Wow. I didn't touch
Do we click it at the same time?
I haven't touched anything. I'm sitting here going, today I got to be more of a audience member and enjoy this. First off, I want to say thank you for coming on. I know I messed up your first name, but at the end of the day, you brought such a great message. I love how you brought the awareness with the calm, because that's the hardest thing. Is a lot of people, when they start trying to talk mental health, they have that negative connotation. Being 19, happy birthday next month, and wishing you the best on that. you have a lot of life ahead of you still, and that comes from someone who's 2 decades older than you. And I look at it and say, I wish I knew people like you when I was your age. I wish I had people like that around me when I was your age. And the truth is, I think a lot of people need to start seeing themselves and realize that the patterns of life are just patterns. You can break them and build your best you. But the only one that can do that is you stepping out into your best realm.
Beautifully said.
First of all, what all of you said is absolutely amazing. I don't even know how I can follow up from that. And thanks for your well wishes for your birthday next month. But the thing that I would like to leave everyone with is, even if you feel like you're not qualified, quote unquote, to talk about mental health or mental illness, to be that support system for someone, go out and like everyone was saying, go out and learn more about it, but also just holding that empathy for others is more than enough. Creating that welcoming environment for others, that safe space for others, it will literally can literally change so many people's lives. So my biggest thing is just hold that empathy, have that understanding, be willing to learn more, be willing to be wrong, and don't be afraid about mental health and mental illness. It's not this, it doesn't have to be, and it shouldn't be this scary foreign thing that we should all avoid. That's not the truth. That's just going to perpetuate the stigma and the problem that not just the United States, not just the AAPI community has, but a lot of people, a lot of cultural communities, a lot of countries have. And instead, really be willing to talk about it and really be willing to learn more about it. And that's going to impact future generations in so many positive ways. And the fact that whoever's here listening, you're already doing so much, you're already doing so much good and learning more about mental health and mental illness. And if you can just slowly have those conversations with the people around you, that's amazing. You are already an advocate by doing that, even if it's just with 1 or 2 people in your lives. So, yeah.
Absolutely wonderful. I'd like to thank everybody so much for watching. Thank you for all your likes, your comments. We had wonderful participation today from the audience. Brandon, thank you for the morning part. And then Christina, thank you for the end part of the show. And Tanaya, thank you so much for being our guest today. We would absolutely love to have you back on again. Love to have you for the book club. And I would definitely love an autographed copy of your novel when it's out.
Don't steal my techniques of getting free autographs. Like, I'll send you a box of Delight, which is an odorless color.
There we are. So, boom, he's gone.
That's hilarious. Yeah. I do have to run, guys. I'll see you later. Bye. I'll reach out to you on Instagram.
Yes, that sounds
Thank you,
good.
Christina.
It was so nice meeting you all, and thank you so much for having me on the show. Bye, Christina.
Absolutely. Everybody have a wonderful day. Take care, and we will see you tomorrow, same time, same place, bright and early. Bye.